Well done. You found a way to connect to the internet. Welcome to the QAA Podcast, episode 359, The Skokie Affair. As always, we are your hosts, Jake Rockatansky,
Liv Agar,
and Travis View.
How is everybody doing today?
I'm good. I just wanted to mention that in the script, instead of Jake's name, he wrote Jake Rock. I think that would be like an awesome porn star name.
It really would. That's ultimate laziness. I was down to the wire trying to. I bit off way more than I could chew on this episode, and down to the wire. Jake Rock. I'll know what to say. But Jake Rock is cool. I've thought about making that some kind of performing name, like music or something. Mm-hmm. But it's a little too on the nose. I feel like
it's very Logan Strain.
It is. It's very Logan Strain coded. Yeah. Liv Agar, if that is your real name.
Makes you think.
Rockatansky isn't mine, obviously. It's Mad Max's last name. If you don't know that by now, get with the program. All right, I guess how do we just jump into something as kind of unsettling as neo-Nazis? I don't know.
I don't know. We've been doing it for going on 8 years now, so we'll find a way.
I'm finding myself really loving this Nazi beat lately. I don't know. It started with the Jaden Scott boys, who we're gonna check up on them. They've been up to no good as predicted. But yeah, I've been really sort of curious, and I made a comment on another episode talking about remembering a story about neo-Nazis or the KKK coming to Skokie, Illinois, where my grandparents lived. But I got the reference all wrong, and so to make it up to myself, I guess, I decided to properly research the Skokie Affair that took place in 1977 and do a little sort of a retro history kind of thing. How do we deal with Nazis back then? Because today it seems they can kind of do whatever they want, make t-shirts, hats,
The legacy of World War II in the 20th century is a bit more looming over people's consciousness in relation to Nazis. Now people are is that's a Hearts of Iron 4 reference you're talking about? I don't...
Yeah, this was not quite as far removed. I have many good memories of Skokie, Illinois from when I was a child. My grandparents lived there, and I remember it being very Jewish, just like them. My grandparents, they had, Tevye statues and stuff in the basement. They were, there was a Henny Youngman giant book of Jewish jokes. My grandmother played mahjong. She smoked Pall Mall unfiltered. They drank Canfield's 50-50. These were Jewish people.
Jewish ASMR. Just mentioning all the old memories, the stimuli.
Matzah ball. Tzedakah. Hamantaschen. For all my Jews out there will know those. The Hamantaschen are really good little cookies. They're triangle cookies that have a jelly center, and they're shaped in, they're supposed to be shaped after a Purim character's hat. Everybody thinks Jews are so, they're they rule the world, but meanwhile we bake cookies that are supposed to look like hats. I don't know. I don't know how you can be so scared of these people. Anyways, my brother and I were very keenly aware when someone was more Jewish than we were, and we found that incredibly funny. One thing you got to understand about growing up as a Jew is there's a lot to laugh about. As a Christian kid, from my understanding, Sunday school is mostly a nightmare from beginning to end that leaves people very traumatized. Can either of you testify to this?
Well, I certainly, it introduces you to a very strange metaphysical system that's that's spoken of in a very strange way. So yeah, honestly, Sunday school I remember being a very odd introduction to Christianity.
As an atheist kid who's not raised religious, it's kind of flat, not this or that. It's kind of neutral.
But you were like, as an atheist kid, like, was there a religion that like you saw your friends have, and you were like, I kind of would rather have that one?
Most of my friends growing up also did not believe in God. Vancouver, British Columbia is like a godless place.
Oh, British,
Gotcha.
they believed in weed and goods,
Exactly.
in good dope, good. Look at the red hairs on that.
Weed and drinking in a field way too early because there's nothing to do.
Yeah. What about cigarettes? How'd you guys feel about those?
No, those were they did a pretty good job at making us not do those. Like when vapes came in, it was just
Amazing.
just ruined all of
Oh,
the
yeah.
progress made from that. But that was a bit like later. We always noticed like at a lot of international kids at our school, like they loved cigarettes. They smoked, and
it.
we were just like, that's kind of strange. Like, you know, those are bad for you.
Yeah, you were like, you don't get anything from that. Like, they don't make you high or anything. I don't understand.
Yeah,
You're just addicted to it? I don't understand.
just smells gross.
It's good with coffee and after meals. You know, the scary sort of traumatization was very much the opposite of my Sunday school experience. Our shit was co-ed. There was snacks allowed, lots of different holidays with accompanying accessories and cuisine. Now, I don't remember a whole lot because it was a very long time ago, but I don't have any bad memories from Hebrew school. I remember like getting my first crush. I remember like saving up money for the vending machine so I could get like sodas and treats that I couldn't have at home. And like mostly young kind of camp counselor type people that would play the guitar and like definitely were burners. Like it was pretty good vibes overall. The other thing you got to understand is that part of being Jewish is to be anti-Semitic. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but this is just kind of part and parcel for the course. It's you're anti-Semitic to yourself, you're anti-Semitic to people who are more Jewish than you, people who are less Jewish than you. It's kind of part of the fun. And so, at a young age, my brother and I were aware that Skokie was a much more Jewish neighborhood than our own. My grandparents were pretty active in their local synagogue, and one time when I was like 6 or so, they made me be a part of a shul fashion show, and I think my brother was too, and we had to walk the runway in front of like a handful of bubbies and schmatties. So maybe there is a little bit of trauma. I was wearing there are pictures from it at my parents' house. I was wearing a baby blue jumpsuit with like a clear blue plastic visor. It was like baby blue. I was really young. Like I must have been like 5 or 6. And my brother, I don't even know if he was old enough that they trusted him because up on there was like a stage that we walked across. Anyways, there are pictures. I hope they never come out. And all this to say, it is no mistake that in 1977, the National Socialist Party of America, an offshoot of the American Nazi Party, chose Skokie, Illinois as the intended location of their so-called white power demonstration.
Bit of like a Charlottesville 2013 moment. Was it 2013?
Yes, absolutely.
Also, smart bit of branding for the National Socialist Party of America. You know, that's like that doesn't people don't react to that immediately quite as well or quite as strongly as when they hear the words American Nazi Party. A little more blunt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those people are not trying to win. That's a LARP at some level. It's just
Well, and the guy who started the National Socialist Party, Frank Collin, who we'll get into, he thought that the American Nazi Party was too old school. He was like, we're not doing enough. We need to be doing more. We need to be out in the streets. And I'm talking about this today because given my latest anxieties surrounding a very out and proud group of Trump 2.0 neo-Nazi influencers, I was reminded of hearing about the Skokie case, as it's sometimes called, from family and educators. And I was curious, how had the neighborhood responded then? What safeguards were put in place over 50 years ago to keep these losers at bay? I really wanted to know. Turns out there was a book about it, so, I did a little bit of a classic book report. But before we get into all that,
QAnon Nazis.
Now, it's not an ideal segment title, but this is us, unfortunately. So I've got an update on Jaden Scott here, the guy who was yelling QAnon slogans at anti-ICE protesters the day after Renee Good was murdered. He's already started making undisclosed bunker videos. On January 26th last month, he posted this to his X account.
breaking news. Jaden Scott announces a crusade Wednesday at MAZ Zone to thwart the rising insurgency and clear the roads for ICE. Special guests will be there, semicolon. UFC fighters? In brackets, maybe. DM me for details. We will be riding at dawn. I like that he changes the tense he's using. Like, it's the third person initially, Jaden Scott referring to himself, and he's like, hit me up.
And then hit me up. Yeah, Jaden Scott announces crusade. Yeah, the Maz zone. They call Minneapolis like the
it's like
autonomous
Chaz.
zone. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, this whole thing is a mess. Misspelling thwart, using a semicolon instead of a colon, and saying the special guest will be UFC fighters ? I mean, this is, I don't know.
I also don't know if this qualifies as breaking news with 2 siren emojis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that'd be what you think that someone else would report the breaking news of him announcing something, and not him.
Yeah, when you announce it yourself, that's not breaking news. That's just a press release.
Yeah.
Along with the post, he attached this video.
We have devolved from 5th generation warfare. As of last night, we have found out that these men are fighting an insurgency. They've bitten the hands off DHS. They've attacked our Patriot Crusaders, Cam Higby, and we still have been running counter intel. I'm here, boots on ground in my bunker. I'm proud to announce that we have infiltrated the deepest levels of these signal chats and Signalgate. Shout out to 0 Hour, shout out to Cam Higby. Guys, we are now fighting an insurgency to the highest levels of Minnesota state government. The lieutenant governor is complicit in this insurrection and in this insurgency. The Crusaders are going boots on ground tomorrow into the Maz zone, Minneapolis Autonomous Zone, to restore law and order. And I promise, it will not go down like it went with American hero Jake Lang. The Patriots are done. This is no longer 5th generation warfare. This is no longer peaceful protest. This is a goddamn Marxist insurgency, and it will be dealt with like such. Crusaders, DM me. Let's go to war.
Really can't emphasize enough how much of a fucking doofus this guy looks like.
Yeah.
For context, he does not look threatening. He's got the shark eyes and he's got the aggression, but it's like, what are you gonna do, buddy? Like,
Listeners, dearest listeners, I'm so sorry for so many years. We bring you horrible shit, but let me paint a picture for you. This man is wearing a pristine, straight off the rack bulletproof vest that is too big. It's like when they run out of life jackets at the too big rental place.
it's like Ariana Grande putting on a hoodie.
He's got a beanie with some sort of brand stitching on it, but the only word you can make out is all caps, and it says men's. Also, he's wearing like purple tinted Morpheus shades and is in some sort of apartment complex basement. You can hear the water heater tank behind him throughout the video.
Yeah, that's such a fascinating place to choose the recording. I wonder what the thought process was about how to go about doing that. Don't want to do it outside. People might yell at us.
But also, I love how it begins with like his back to the camera, and he slowly turns around. And I just have to imagine the moment before that when he pressed record, ran into his mark, with his back to the camera, then slowly turned around.
Yeah. There's a video of that that's like an extra 10 seconds long that you need to see.
Now, I wasn't the only person who found the video a little overdramatic. Some of the top commenters admitted that even though they agreed with Scott's politics, they found the video a little gay.
The first guy, who I believe has like an AI generated, is that a photo of like Tony Soprano, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's Tony Soprano.
He's got a $sign. He's like a Bitcoin guy. He says, I've seen some gay shit before, but this is peak butt plug material. Peak butt plug material is like a gem, I think. I've never heard that before.
Peak butt plug material. As in, like, this makes this crypto soprano want to put a butt plug in.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense when you think about it, other than that, like, butt plugs are gay. I'm gonna shove this video in my ass, man. It's so gay.
That has 547 likes. Jaden replies to this, all caps, "Stand with the homeland." The next commenter, SoFlo Rat,
says, conservative here, I get the sentiment, but this is low-key gay. Gives me liberal theater boy vibes. And it is very dramatic. It has a lot of flair. So I get where he's coming from.
And Jaden writes, "Low T take. Get in the streets and crusade with us." But he's the comment that says that gives me liberal theater boy vibes has 453 likes. Jaden only has 68 on his low T take.
Yeah.
So
Got ratioed.
he is getting,
It's getting cooked, as they say.
getting cooked in the comments.
Yeah, I wonder if this guy is just like in a episode, because the intensity too. Like, I can't imagine someone who's just always like this. And I'm sure there are people like that, but with many of these guys have the reaction of like, is this a manic episode?
Yeah, it's like he wants to make ISIS videos, but but his language just feels kind of like outdated. Like it sort of feels like Mr. Smith goes to Washington. He's like, we're boots on ground.
Yeah.
I'm here in my bunker. It just feels a little bit dated. Like, I don't know, if you're gonna go for this kind of dramatic flair, like make a fucking bunker, man. Like get some screens going, get like guys click-clacking, make it look like you're in some sort of data center. I think it's just lazy production.
Yeah, maybe that's why he chose that location, is it's like the most ominous. It's like I'm underground because
I'm
the
underground.
feds are looking for me or whatever.
I'm telling you, this is a parking lot. This is this is like a door that says like exit at like the bottom level of some parking lot somewhere, and you briefly walk through an area where all of the like heating machines and air conditioning units are.
Yeah.
The last commenter says, I agree with him. It is time we take it into our own hands. This is BS. And Jaden writes, based. But her comment only got 35 likes. People seem to be way liking more comments criticizing and making fun of Jaden's video.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's interesting to me that in Jaden's Twitter bio, where he still has a pretty modest following, I mean, only maybe 10,000 or so, a little bit more than that, he refers to himself as a patriot in control. And to me, this signifies a much more willing, active participant than what the phrase signified earlier on in the world of QAnon.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the conclusion of QAnon failing. It's,
Right.
You can't trust the plan anymore. It's up to you.
Yeah, it's you. You are a patriot in control instead of don't worry, patriots are in control.
Yeah, 'cause if you're not in control, there's clearly no patriots behind the scenes right now.
Right.
It's up to you.
And honestly, I'm still sort of on the fence as to whether these guys are serious QAnon believers or if it's just terminally online brain poison intended to kind of confuse and troll and,
Yeah.
they know that that's what the media will be talking about. And I don't know. I still go back to the first video where we discovered this guy, Jaden, and he says, where we come one week. And like, he was it sounded like he was trying to just ramp off as many QAnon phrases as possible and got one wrong. And I don't know if he was just too excited or if he had learned them recently.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm baking, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that these sort of guys, like, are they my age? It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if they're aging really poorly and they're my age or they're like maybe mid-30s.
I think so. I think they're late 20s, early 30s, maybe.
It's like zillennial kind of my age. And it's a very ironic age group. And so even when they try to like invoke this really serious, intense, like passionate white supremacy, like it has to be kind of ironic. It's like, who are these cultural signifiers? I wasn't even a part of this movement. I'm a poser. I'm jumping on, 4 years after it actually died. Because that's like the only way that they know how to articulate seriousness and be noticed on the internet.
That's really interesting. Like, remember the videos that we had that Ford Fisher posted from the like OG Jake Lang rally where they've got the guy in the weird Biden mask and he's throwing the chocolate coins. It's like there's a little bit of that irony like in that as well. Like I think you're onto something there, that there's something kind of, that's why I don't really trust fully that these guys are like QAnon pilled.
Yeah, it's hard to, it's like at a certain point it's like a distinction without a difference. Because it's like if you're doing it as a bit, like, Your Honor, I was doing a white supremacist QAnon, insurgency, but I was a bit. I didn't actually think QAnon was real.
Yeah, Your Honor, the white supremacy stuff, I do believe in. But the QAnon stuff was just kind of for fun.
Yeah, I don't actually think that there's a poster out 4chan who's in with the president. It's like, well, it's about what it signifies. And I'm sure like the politics of what it signifies, he certainly believes.
Yeah. Update on Jake Lang. Just yesterday, Pardon J6er and Proud Nazi Jake Lang, the guy who was throwing the coins in the video that we were just talking about, and who was rescued by, a lefty from getting, beat up by a huge group of counter-protesters when he showed up to the Minneapolis City Hall steps to once again threaten to burn a Quran. And so Jake Lang was arrested at the Minnesota Capitol on February 5th, last Thursday, after he kicked over a newly installed sculpture made out of ice that read "Prosecute ICE," which, if I must say, is a very, very tame statement given what ICE has been doing.
That's the very moderate position.
Prosecute ICE?
Yeah.
Prosecute? It's like a fair trial for the street executors.
Yeah.
Sir, a fair trial. Their story should be heard.
I was wondering, is that less radical than abolish ICE? I guess the point is like we got to do Nuremberg trials.
Yeah. I mean, that would be ideal.
Yeah, maybe that's what they mean. That would be a little bit more ideal, certainly.
So the sign was unveiled that day by a veterans group called Common Defense to call for accountability in the ICE murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy.
It's really how you know, like, the Overton window is shifted, that a veterans group is like, no, we got to do something about these secret police Gestapo.
We got to do something about these fucking guys. Lang had one of his buddies videotape him as he knocked over the letters so that the sign then read pro-ICE.
And Trump, we support you. We support ICE. Our country was made for Americans, not for Somalis.
He's such a dork.
Pro-ICE, baby! America first, America only! We'll see you here, February 7th, Saturday, 12 noon, outside the Minnesota State Capitol.
Wrong.
I wish, dear listener, you could see the video because he, like, when he's going up to hit the S and prosecute, he, like, almost trips over it and falls.
Yes,
Yeah.
he also...
Which would have been so
He's
good.
also doing like a little, as people online pointed out, he's doing a little bit of like a pas bourrée type of kick. Like it's a very,
Yeah.
he's dancing.
Not
He's
threatening.
dancing through these kicks and like also in a funny vest and like, but wearing a weird shirt underneath. Like it's not a tack shirt underneath. It's like,
It's like I saw. It looks like it's like sort of a green shirt, but it's got a pattern of these little black skulls all over it. So yeah, but it also has a nice collar. It has a collared shirt with the outlines of skull designs all over it.
yeah, it's like Nazi wear Ben Sherman kind of.
Yeah. Also, yeah, these jungle camo pants. It's a strange getup.
Yeah, he looks like he got the shirt like where I get a lot of my clothes, which is like the clearance rack at like Nordstrom rack, like wherever the like the outlet store is, and then the clearance rack within that outlet store. Like at one time, this was a nice shirt, but now it's like no longer in style, or they found that the material like causes like rashes under your armpits. So like there it is for like $14.75, and you look at the label and you go, Penguin, like I thought this was kind of nice stuff. And then you get the shirt home and like it fits perfectly in the shoulders but really tugs in that belly area in a way that you'll know you'll never wear it again. But you're so embarrassed that you don't even bother going back to Nordstrom's rack to return it for the $14.75 that you fucking paid for it. So you know what it does? It sits in a bag at the bottom of your closet for years, sometimes half decades. And then you donate it to Goodwill, like during a closet clean out, one spring.
That's the difference between you, Jake Rockatansky, and Jake Lang, is that Jake Lang was like, I love this shirt. I'm gonna wear this every day.
Jake Lang bought that shirt full price.
Yeah.
He bought it from the Ben Sherman pop-up shop. I don't know. People are like, Ben Sherman, what is that? I'm just like trying to think of a clothing brand that was cool when I was interested in clothes. Right now I'm wearing a hoodie from the video game Redfall, which is like a doomed like co-op shooter on Xbox that like got panned. It was supposed to be like a first party launch, really exciting, and it got panned, but I liked the game so much that I got a sweatshirt from it. That's what I'm wearing right now.
I see. It's one of the like indie Kickstarter things that never came to fruition.
No, it was like an Xbox first part. It was like supposed to be their big kind of like Series X, like who did it? It's some like really famous Arcane Studios maybe like did it. It was like people were really looking forward to it, and then it like kind of bombed. But I really liked it, and I got the sweatshirt for it. So now you know something. Now you know another dumb thing about me. Hundreds of thousands of listeners. I forget sometimes that like the show is like it isn't just kind of like the three of us talking to nobody.
Yeah.
Because so much of podcasting feels like that. It's just the three of us on like a Zoom call. Like I've never even met Liv in person.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Travis, I don't know. I've hung out with him in real life. I don't know. Probably like less than 50 times probably in our entire thing. It's just like I'm looking at a computer script. But yeah, I forget that there's so many. I probably should get on with the content in that case. Shortly after Jake did his dance and he kicked over the ice sculpture, he was pulled over by a state trooper near Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and was arrested on suspicion of criminal damage to property. Unfortunately for Lang, suspicion will soon turn to certainty because he videotaped himself doing the crime and then posted it to the internet.
So awesome.
A lot of people online were bagging on, we talked about this, they were bagging on him for struggling to destroy sections of the sculpture.
I sure hope so. I sure hope I wasn't the first one to
You were
notice
not the
that.
first.
I would have been surprised if I was.
Throughout his arrest, Lang somehow managed to tweet, writing, "I'm currently being arrested outside the Minnesota State Capitol for turning the, quote, prosecute ICE sign the Democrats erected into the wonderful pro-ICE, ice cube emoji, heart emoji." And then he replied to that tweet and he goes, "They are charging me with a felony." For $6,000 in damage, I'm being taken to Ramsey County Jail in Minnesota. So he did get booked for that. He is arrested, and it is a felony. Since the damage is more than $1,000, it could qualify for first-degree destruction of property, which carries a 5-year jail sentence and a $10,000 fine.
Honestly, in his defense, I would not have expected the prosecute ice sculpture to be worth more than $1,000.
Yeah.
It's like what? It's gonna melt away. It's just a
He
temporary...
made a horrible error that day.
Yeah.
Even if he has to spend, and this is after he spent 4 years in like federal prison for Jan 6.
Yeah,
So like
that's true. He's going back.
he might go back. What an idiot. Folks, we've got the dumbest Nazis.
Yeah. It is fascinating to see these sort of guys. Because it's like there are like actual scary fascists who have like, a compound
Yes.
in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And they're not making these videos. Like this is like the most pathetic loser fascist who's like, oh, I'm getting a lot of attention because people are
Yeah.
horrified at the existence of Nazism. Like clearly I am like important and I'm at the forefront. I'm on the vanguard of a white supremacist revolt. But no, it's just you went off your mood stabilizers.
I feel like this is one of those Nazis who are like taking advantage of the fact that this kind of content doesn't get you banned from social media anymore. So they're like, oh, all right, let's do the most ostentatious, showy, performative kind of like pro-Nazi or Nazi adjacent content that you can on social media, and this is the result.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his tweets. They're getting more likes than any of my tweets ever have. Like just the comment where he's like, "I'm getting charged with a felony," had like 4,500 likes on it. These guys are posting these videos and getting like they're doing Midas touch numbers on these videos.
1.8 million Twitter views. Twitter views are fake, but it's still like a measure of magnitude in some way. 36,000 likes. Yeah, I mean, he's really embarrassing himself.
Yeah, it's like, of course, it's on Twitter. Like, I don't think there's any other platform where this kind of content is going to do as good, because even Rumble, like, as popular as it is, like, a good video on Rumble is getting like, I don't know, 10,000 views. There just isn't as big a user base as there is on X.
Yeah, Travis and I were talking about this a bit before, that like there is like a vibe shift happening back to like quote unquote woke or whatever. Like you could definitely see that, especially I feel like the Super Bowl halftime, for instance, you can see that shift. But like the people in charge are still evil, and they're much eviler than they used to be. So like these guys are allowed to do stuff that like, even if the culture kind of returns to where it used to be before, like half a decade ago, you still get the Nazis who are able to post and not get taken down.
Yeah, I wish there could be like a Twitter island or something where like all those guys could just go live the way that they wanted to.
Yeah, it used to be True Social, I guess. But I guess they don't get enough attention though.
Yeah, it's not good enough. They need people to fight. And then you have idiots who are like, "I'm staying on X. Like, this is the front line of the battleground of the information war. And and in fact, I'm going to pay $8 a month. I'm actually going to pay the the Nazis so that my post can reach more views, because it's the only way. It's the only way to fight."
Yeah, they should just be put in a place like X is already, all the numbers are basically fake. Like you get way more likes than you used to. Like they should just be put in one that's extra fake, and they just have bot replies and they're like, "I'm famous. Everyone in America knows me." Was the QAnon theory, but like Joe Biden thinks that he's the president, but he's actually in like a studio and there are like actors around him.
Yeah, but it's way easier. I think it's like probably more difficult to convince Biden that he's president than to convince like your average sort of like pilled social media user that like all the engagement they're getting like isn't real.
Yeah.
Like that's an easy sell.
Yeah, they probably already believe it's real.
Can you imagine if like, I don't know, Jaden Scott or Jake Lang posted something like this and a guy got like 350,000 likes, and like everybody in the comments was like, Heil Hitler, like you are so hot, like please please have sex with me now. Like just trap these people in just like in like a world where they think they're like the most famous person in the world.
It would work. They got to do that.
Live.
Woke 2 coming back.
Whoa, I think we've stumbled onto something truly fantastic, which perfectly transitions to our main segment,
The Skokie Case.
Another thing about growing up as a Jewish kid is that Nazis are the boogeyman. I read the graphic novel Mouse when I was probably too young and would fall asleep trying to imagine what it would be like trying to hide from the Nazis. I don't know if either of you have read that particular comic.
Yeah.
Travis, have you?
No, I've missed that one.
It's very good. I might reorder it. I haven't read it in a long time, but it's really graphic and basically it depicts like a Holocaust sort of survival story from the point of view of somebody who lived through the concentration camps. But all of the like characters in it are depicted as animals. So the Jews are the mice, the Nazis are the cats, and then like the various other people are different animals, but it's incredibly violent. Like, and it's like totally graphic. Like you see nudity, there's violence, there's like lots of murdering. It's like really disturbing. And I definitely read it probably like a little too young.
My reaction to that was definitely more like, damn, it's fucked up related to you guys. As opposed to like, oh, it's, envisioning myself as the...
Yeah, you would hear about, there's a part in I can't remember if it was in Mouse or it was a different, or maybe in some other, and I don't even know if it was like a documentary thing or it was like part of some fictional movie, but there was like a scene where like people were hiding in like piles of shoes, like they hid in piles of dead people's shoes, like basically on their way to escape. It was like one stop, they knew they could hide in there for a certain amount of time. And I always used to envision that like under my covers. Like I'd be under my covers as a little kid and be like, what if it was a pile of shoes? And I guess that's my own anxiety that was just manifesting like through the content that I read and the things that me and, we were generally afraid of, because otherwise the 90s was fairly good, in the suburbs of Chicago for like a white, upper middle class boy, like things were pretty good. So I guess, dreaming about like the horrors that my ancestors went through, I guess was like, I don't know, a way that my anxiety presented itself.
That makes sense. It's hard not to have your anxiety fixate on, especially like cultural memories like that, especially if you're like,
yeah, that's
life
a good
is
point.
Regularly fine.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but imagine if it wasn't fine. Like what happened to people I've interacted with in real life at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not sure about my dad's side, but my mom's parents both had cousins who were killed during the Holocaust. Most Jews that I knew, at the very least, had distant relatives who had also perished or had been in the camps or their families had fled. It was pretty common. It was a pretty common sort of backstory. And in fact, Skokie, Illinois claimed to have one of the highest populations of Holocaust survivors in the country. An estimate found in an old court filing from the case said that out of Skokie's 70,000 residents, they suspected 40,500 were Jewish. And in 2018, former Mayor George Van Dusen said to ABC News that Skokie had, quote, the largest number of Holocaust survivors outside of Israel. I do not know if this is true. Regardless, it was for this reason that a 32-year-old neo-Nazi named Frank Collin sent the Park District of Skokie a letter asking for a permit to hold a Nazi parade.
It's so funny to do it above board. Like, please, can I be a Nazi in your Jewish city? Like,
yeah.
They're all fucking dorks. They're dorks then, they're dorks now. They're stupid.
Wait till you see a picture of this guy. He and Jake Lang have a lot in common.
Sure.
So it turns out that Frank Collin was originally Frank Cohen.
Oh.
And his father, Max, had spent 3 months in Dachau, the concentration camp.
Oh.
He had escaped to America, worked hard to build up a small home furnishing dealership, and moved his family to the suburbs of Olympia Fields. Can you imagine, like, as a Jewish parent, it's one thing if your kid doesn't become a doctor or a lawyer, God forbid, but a Hitler-worshipping Nazi.
Yeah.
Oy! I mean, can you imagine the shame?
Negative effects of Jewish proximity to whiteness. That your kid is just like, no, I'm white. I'm like white in the white way, extra white.
White in the right way. While being interviewed for the PBS documentary Skokie, Invaded But Not Conquered, former Chicago leader of the Jewish Defense League, Buzz Alpert, said he knew Frank's father.
Frank Collin had a Jewish father, Max Collin, who I knew. And poor Max Collin, very, very sad. I talked to him a few times, and he would put his head down like this when he would talk about his Nazi kid.
It's like, yeah, talk about his Nazi kid. Yeah, that's funny.
Ultimate shame. I mean, I thought that clip was so funny. By the way, there's footage in the PBS doc of that guy from the clip, Buzz, throwing down against Nazis in the street. And I gotta say, the man was a beast. Respect. That's all I have to say about that. So, turns out Frank had become pilled at a young age after seeing images of Hitler during an anti-Nazi television program. Here's a passage from When Nazis Came to Skokie by Philippa Strum, from which I got a lot of my research.
He claimed that he became a Nazi when he saw an anti-Nazi television program called The Twisted Cross, sponsored by the Jewish Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith. What impressed him most were the close-ups of Hitler's face and the shots of the audience, whom Collin described as deeply moved, as if they had just had an awakening to something very important. I saw a great man, deeply committed to something very powerful, Collin would say later, adding, I've loved Hitler ever since. I mean, I suppose this is why fascists pour so much energy and thought to aesthetics, because it works on some people.
Yes.
Because, like, yeah, they see the careful propaganda of showing Hitler looking commanding in front of an audience, and they say, I have been convinced.
And it's true. Collin styled his hair like Hitler's, dressed like a Nazi, and spoke like a Nazi.
The final solution to the Jewish question is exposing them as the leaders of international communism and race mixing.
So, I mean, this is I think part of why this movement failed. You can't really take fascism. You're stuck in the 1930s, my guy. You need to update your hairstyles a little bit.
Yeah. Collin ended up joining the American Nazi Party in 1963, but left shortly after its leader, Lincoln Rockwell, was assassinated in 1967. In 1968, he formed the National Socialist Party of America, the NSPA, and set up a headquarters he called Rockwell Hall on West 71st Street on the south side of Chicago. So he chose the area of Market Park on the south side because the predominantly white neighborhood was racist and did not want minorities moving in. Like Jake Lang, Collin and his neo-Nazis claimed that Jewish landlords were doing this on purpose. To what end, I'm still not sure.
Just mischief, causing chaos.
I don't know. What they think is they're like, the Jewish people are moving black people into predominantly white areas because...
It's like the QAnon neuroses. It's like the bad guys are just evil. They don't actually have explainable material interests like human beings. It's like, they're the devil or some equivalent.
Yeah, because they can't come up with anything other than they think black people are insert whatever, piece of racism you want. And because they believe that, they're like, whoa, well, if they move in.
Yeah, that's like the 1-2 combo in America, at least, of anti-black racism and anti-Semitism. You see all this with Black Lives Matter conspiracy theories, where it's George Soros, the Jewish billionaire, is tricking black people into doing violence for his bidding. It's like the Jewish people are the puppet masters of the conspiracy to destroy America.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks for clarifying that, because I'm always like, well, what do they think it is? And I think you're right. It's just that they're puppet mastering something. Mm-hmm. They're orchestrating something that we don't like. Mm-hmm. Also, like Lang, the NSPA claimed that they weren't advocating for the murder of anyone, just imprisonment and deportation of anyone black, Jewish, or gay. According to the book,
the party claimed to be against pollution, narcotics peddlers, degenerate arts, the federal income tax, the Federal Reserve System, unemployment, gangsterism, and crime. It supported public execution of all, quote, convicted rioters and looters and convicted narcotics peddlers, preservation of the, quote, free enterprise system and the rights of private property, reunification of the family as the hub of society, and an authoritarian form of republic government founded on the ideals originally expressed in the United States Constitution.
So fucking nothing new.
Yeah.
It's like, this is exactly, and by the way, Trump is giving them a public execution of just people they think are narcotics peddlers. Mm-hmm. We've done away with convicted.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy to look at that. It's like, God, in 1977, you were reading this and be like, public execution. It's like they're working on the rioters and looters now. And actually, no, they've got that as well. Public execution. We've lost convicted and we've lost a rioter or looter. It was just a woman in her car and a man trying to help a woman up off of the street. So actually, if Frank Collin is still alive, which I think he is still alive, he's probably pretty pleased with the way things are going.
I'm sure he's ecstatic right now.
Yeah. After one particular demonstration turned violent in the summer of 1976, the Park District of Chicago realized they could successfully keep Frank and his goons from demonstrating in the parks by implementing a statute requiring them to have liability insurance in the $150,000 to $300,000 range. So basically, Collins was pissed off because he didn't have anywhere near the scratch to essentially just wear a Nazi uniform in public. And this is a picture of him.
Oh, they do look quite similar, Jake Lang and him.
Doesn't he look a lot like Jake Lang?
There's a hard R in this photo of like a poster, and then you got like the white power.
So much of the stuff about these guys I just didn't include because it's like at what point am I just like reading Nazi stuff, which I don't like doing.
Yeah, there is a point like fill in the blanks of what these guys are saying, what slurs.
Yeah, exactly.
Actual out and proud hardcore Nazis and everything that encompasses. So they're like they would say all those things.
I think there's a quote later that has like a pretty bad Jewish slur, but I'll read that one and that's okay. Nothing I haven't heard before. So anyway, so the parks kind of basically sort of figured out a little bit of a loophole to like keep these guys out of Marquette Park, which is good because there were starting to be people showing up who, naturally like wanted to knock these guys out, naturally. That's that's kind of like part of the thing. It's like if you're like a big famous actor, going out and like seeing paparazzi, people asking for photographs, kind of part of the job. If you're a Nazi, like people are going to want to like knock you out. It's just kind of part of a risk you have to take on. And so Collins had another idea. He was going to send super aggressive Nazi flyers to a bunch of Chicago suburbs where he knew lots of Jewish people lived. The top of the flyers read, "We are coming," in all capital letters. And in case it wasn't clear, the pamphlet contained a giant swastika at the top.
Yeah, I feel like a part of this is just like someone who like needs to, in order to feel real, they have to affect other people negatively. It's like, oh, I'm so scary. That means like I'm important in some way. It's like the equivalent of like when like teenage boys will just like push, boulders down cliffs or something, just do reckless stuff. And it's like, I'm having an effect in the world. They just like haven't gotten over that.
Yeah. These are like very scary to see, especially 77. It's like you basically think like most of these people have kind of been like, shamed into darkness at the very least.
Yeah, it had not been that long since the Holocaust.
Rabbi Neil Brief, a local religious leader, and Howard Reich, who was growing up in Skokie at the time, remember the first time they discovered one of the NSPA's leaflets.
I remember a Friday night service, I think it was October of 1976, where someone came back from the parking lot with a leaflet saying that the Nazis are coming. All I know is that after that incident, the matter seemed to catch fire amongst people who were Holocaust survivors.
My dad was going nuts about this. When it would become on TV and it was a media phenomenon at the time, my dad would turn pale, ashen pale, and the relatives would be calling each other on the phone, calling each other on the phone. The Nazis are coming back. They're coming again.
Yeah, I mean this is not an abstract issue for these people,
yeah.
Right? Like there was like, it happened once, right? And we know what it looks like when it starts happening again.
Yeah, naturally, this prompted a lot of worry from residents, and they began to call the ADL to complain. And this caused Frank Collins to be interviewed in the Chicago Sun-Times, where he was more than happy to explain to the largest audience he'd ever had that the pamphlets were intended to scare people. He was quoted as saying, "I hope they're terrified. I hope they're shocked, because we're coming to get them again. I don't care if someone's mother or father or brother died in the gas chambers. The unfortunate thing is not that there were 6 million Jews who died. The unfortunate thing is that there were so many Jewish survivors."
Jesus Christ. You allowed, I guess, American free speech laws.
Well, that's like what this is all about. So that's like what this whole case is about,
Right.
is free speech and like what constitutes this, which is why I thought it was kind of interesting. So much shit like went in motion when this happened that it's like, it makes you think today that's like somebody like Jake Lang is just like showing up outside, like throwing coins, like, now I don't know if they're wearing swastikas, because the wearing and the visual of the swastika is actually became a crucial sort of like center point of this legal case. Collin somehow even got himself on Donahue, the Phil Donahue talk show, where he said a whole bunch of Nazi shit that I figured at this point would just be gratuitous, so I chose not to clip it. I did, however, find a clip of Abbott Rosen, the Midwest director of the ADL, telling Donahue that he was fucked up for that.
A man who heads a so-called National Socialist Party of America, which has as its ultimate purpose the incinerating of blacks and Jews. Now, I would argue that persons such as that should not be scheduled.
What is your point? I have a right to put him on, but I shouldn't?
Yes, I thought it was poor judgment.
Which is fair, you know.
Fair.
This is like really, this is where you'd get your real trashy content, daytime television at the time.
Donahue looks genuinely distraught. What was I supposed to do? Not let him, talk about Nazi shit for, an hour? Oddly enough, out of all the towns that Collins had peppered with pamphlets, Skokie was the only one to respond. And this wasn't the first time that Nazis had marched in Skokie. The village was home to many German immigrants and a handful of Nazi supporters up until the end of the Second World War. Apparently, there was a group of guys who called themselves the Chicago German-American Volksbund, and they would march down one of Skokie's main streets in the late 30s, like 1937 or so. And they always ended up at this local Nazi bar that had a huge portrait of Adolf Hitler on the wall. But as they began to see what horrible things Hitler was doing overseas on the news, they slowly took down the portrait, they stopped wearing the uniforms, and basically just disappeared.
This median Trump voter right now, his reaction compared to voting for him 2 years ago.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, very true. Yeah, they basically were seeing on the news, and they were like, oh man, it doesn't feel so dope to wear these Nazi uniforms out in public. The Park District of Skokie responded to Collin that the NSPA would have to post a bond of $350,000 liability insurance if he wanted to obtain a permit to demonstrate in any of the parks. Collin came up with another plan. He would show up in Skokie on May 1st, 1977, to protest the city denying his First Amendment right by making the permit insurance so expensive. He promised public officials and local law enforcement that he would show up at 3 p.m. with 30 to 50 people at the most, protest only on the sidewalks, not block any traffic, follow all city ordinances, and leave after 30 minutes.
The Nazi who loves following the rules.
Yeah, so he was like, look, it's my right to protest you not allowing me to demonstrate here. But look, guys, it's going to be 20 to 30 minutes tops. I'm only going to have 30 to 50 Nazis here, which, by the way, according to the author, was very much an exaggeration. That usually he was unable to draw, more than 10 to 15 people. It was very small. He was very small flock. Nowadays, neo-Nazis out and proud on our streets are somewhat old hat. But in '77, this was a big deal. So I did not know this, but the bad guy in the movie Blues Brothers is actually based on Frank Collin.
White men, white women, the swastika is calling you. The Jew is using the black as muscle against you.
So that's crazy. There's even a scene from Blues Brothers where Belushi goes, Illinois Nazis. I hate Illinois Nazis. So these guys were very, very famous. Director John Landis even admitted to lifting a speech used in the movie directly from the answering machine recording at the NSPA headquarters.
He gives this speech, white men, white women. That speech, I actually took word for word. It was the machine, the answering message that when you called the American Nazi Party, that was the message you got. And at the end it said, please leave a message when you hear the beep. What I did, what is kind of amusing or not, is I did leave a message. I said, hi, my name's John Landis and I'm doing a movie, and they never called me back.
It's aggressive answering machine message.
Yeah, it really is.
All right, we are working towards purifying this nation for white people. Please leave a message.
I really admit I did not know how famous this case was. There were numerous dramatized adaptations, including a CBS made-for-TV movie from 1980 starring none other than Danny Kaye.
If you want no violence, keep the Nazis out. Because if they march here, if they bring the swastika here, I swear to you, there is nothing will keep me from fighting them.
And this was, generally the sentiment in Skokie at the time. The mayor is brought in, a council's convened with local rabbis. Everyone's trying to figure out how they're going to handle this. And initially, the idea was to try and quarantine the Nazis and have the rabbis tell people in their synagogue to just avoid the area, that giving these guys any kind of attention is exactly what they wanted. But people were furious.
The rabbis, they said, be quiet, don't do anything, just sit back and watch and let them go through and it will go over. So we said, no, this is how it started in Germany with a few people only. We're not going to let nobody here, since we're in the United States and we're not afraid, nobody's going to come to our door and tell me that he's going to kill me.
They sent the rabbis back to the council, and on April 21st, a larger group convened, this time containing additional Chicago-based Jewish organizations, 18 of which appeared at this meeting. And the decision was made to stage a counter-demonstration a couple of blocks away from Frank and his guys. New leaflets began appearing around Skokie, with hand-drawn swastikas like before, but also now a crudely drawn caricature of a Jew decorated the flyers as well. The flyers also promised that a large poster was in the works. They went on to describe what to expect on the poster, and I just think this is so funny that, they made pamphlets, essentially. They had pamphlets printed that said, "A poster is coming."
A trailer for the poster.
Yeah, this is like a trailer for the poster, and then they went on to describe what the poster was going to be. And I'll read that description. It says, quote, "The poster shows 3 rabbis involved in the ritual murder of an innocent Gentile boy during the hate fest of Purim. Our propaganda will deal at large with revealing quotes, many never before presented anywhere, from loose-lipped heaves.
Oh, that's an
In
old
short,
one.
our successful opposition to the black invasion of Southwest Chicago will now be turned on the culprits who started it all. The Jews!"
So, yeah, like announcement, we're going to do some propaganda when we get around to it that does some old-fashioned medieval blood libel.
You guys are going to be so mad about it. You're going to be so
Yeah,
angry.
now you're going to be pissed off. It's going to be infuriating.
So much of this case, really kind of boils down to Frank Collin being like, "Yo, look, guys, we're broke. Like us Nazis, we don't have a ton of money. It is unfair. We should be allowed, even though we are a poor movement, to be able to protest like everybody else."
That is like an American Nazi staple. Because remember the Kanye Hail Hitler song? It was all about my wife left me, I'm cucked, I have no money anymore, and I love Hitler. They can't help themselves.
Oh my God. Of course. I should say, the only reason that I know loose-lipped heaves is tough, but the only reason I read this stuff is so we can all laugh and agree how stupid it is, and how dumb these people are, and what a waste of time they've made of their lives.
Yeah, it's interesting how similar of a problem it is to the contemporary issue. Because I remember, it was maybe Cenk Lang when he was doing his QAnon Nazi stuff. There was a lady beside him who was like, "Don't give him attention," and there was someone recording. So it's the same discussion is happening, where it's this loser who doesn't actually have that much sway outside of being controversial, creating a large reaction. And the question is whether do you push against it to make sure that that sort of Nazism is allowed, or do you ignore it? It's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult. That's why that's what this is all about. And funny enough, when I read this, I remembered what Lang is shouting, during that demonstration, where he's basically he was the brownification or something. He was like, Israel is responsible for the brownification of the United States. So instead of it being on a local level where it's the local Jewish landlords are, bringing black people into the neighborhoods, to cause chaos, it's on this sort of international scale now. But it's still the same accusation, which I found interesting. That's this is all the same shit, except back then there was all of this legal motions being put in place. People sat down, really, how do we handle this? Whereas nowadays it's just a viral video.
Yeah, it's so much less organized. And so of course it's just inevitably going to get attention. Obviously it's going to default to the giving someone attention thing, because you see it on X, the point is to engage with stuff you don't like on that website. So this is something you really don't like, people are going to engage with it.
Yeah, that's very true. So towards the end of April, another meeting was held where Holocaust survivors living in Skokie told Mayor Albert J. Smith horrific stories of the violence they had witnessed by people in Nazi uniforms, and that they should be protected from having to see them. And so, on April 27, 1977, City Attorney Harvey Schwartz filed the first paperwork in Skokie versus the National Socialist Party of America. As soon as he found out that legal action was being taken against him and his group, preventing them from demonstrating, Frank Collin reached out to the director of the ACLU, demanding that they take up the case in an effort to preserve freedom of speech. And they did. David Goldberger, a Jew himself, took up defending Frank Collin, the Nazi. One of the other ACLU lawyers at the time, Barbara O'Toole, said of Collin,
Collin, needed help. We needed to keep the law clean. It would not have served our interest to let him flounder without counsel and get injunctions against speech that would have been affirmed and then cited against us. It was very much in our interest to keep the law in order.
I mean, that's the interesting reason that, they didn't want to a precedent that might have harmed future legal cases in this particular case.
Yeah.
So the position of the ACLU, despite it not being ideal that they were representing a Nazi, was that the government shouldn't get to decide what type of free speech its citizens are allowed to hear. And Harvey Schwartz, representing the village of Skokie, was making the case that the government's lack of censorship constituted an endorsement, and that the villagers of Skokie had the right to be protected from seeing a symbol that caused them much harm. And so on April 28, 1977, Judge Joseph Wasik would be presented with the first hearing for Skokie versus the NSPA. In his opening statement, Harvey said this:
"We will bring to this court, by way of the testimony of witnesses, the present mood that prevails in the village of Skokie, one that has been inflamed and incited only and simply by reason of the prospective march by the defendants, which, if it is not enjoined by this court, could lead to great violence and to irreparable harm."
So Harvey then called 6 witnesses from the community to testify as to the mood in Skokie upon hearing about the planned march. Fred Richter of the Synagogue Council testified that if Jews in Skokie saw Nazis march, they might not be able to stop themselves from hurting them. He said, quote, "The speakers that spoke, I'll start with the survivors, spoke in strong, definitive terms that they cannot, under any circumstances, take the fact that a Nazi will walk on the streets of Skokie, that this is an outrage and an obscenity to them, that the very thought of seeing their uniforms in Skokie has gotten them beyond their rationality. And these are people who are in positions within business, leadership, very, very responsible people who have lived here for many, many years and act within civic and within the other areas of life in the United States today." Another witness, Saul Goldstein, also echoed this sentiment when it was his turn to take the stand. Quote, "He did not intend to react violently to the sight of swastikas if the Nazi demonstration took place, but he was not certain he would be able to control himself and could not promise to refrain from attacking Collin." Surprisingly enough, the city of Skokie called Collin himself to the stand, where he proudly admitted that yes, it was him and his small group that had been spreading the conspiracy that the Jews were, quote, responsible for the black invasion of Southwest Chicago, end quote, and that he and his group would continue to try and tell this to whoever would listen. He also stated that his intended rally would have no anti-Semitic signs, only white supremacist signs, and that no further reading material would be handed out during the demonstration.
Like nothing about Jews being bad, only white people being good.
Only about us being the only people who should be allowed to be in the country. What happens to them, we don't know. So the final witness for the city of Skokie was a man by the name of Ronald Lansky. He testified about counter-demonstration flyers from left-wing groups reading, quote, "Smash the Nazis." He told the court that he was absolutely certain that if Nazis did show up to the City Hall building that day, they would be smashed. Later on, former Illinois Senator Howard Carroll claimed that once it was known what routes the Nazis were going to march, there were vacant apartments rented for the day along the path, and not to just live in.
As they were announcing the routes, there were groups, probably the Jewish Defense League, who were renting apartments for the day on the route. And it was not to watch the parade, it was to take action. And I got some very good information that they had the rifles and they were ready to take them out.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's intense.
When it came time for ACLU attorney Goldberg to present Frank Collin's side of the case, it was clear that Judge Wasik didn't give half a shit.
He let the ACLU lawyers know in no uncertain terms that he, Joe Wasik, had served in the United States Army, that he had served in the European theater. He had seen what the Nazis did and the crimes against humanity, against Jews and Poles. He had relatives, family in Poland, Warsaw, other places where the Nazis were out.
Can you imagine the judge being like, I'll have you know, I spent a good part of my life killing Nazis. The author of the book about the case, said that the judge was constantly like interrupting Goldberger, the ACLU attorney, and getting up to take long phone calls in his office in the middle of the proceedings. So he was just like, I don't give a shit what this guy has to say. The ACLU, of course, filed a motion to dismiss the case and stated that the demonstration would only be 20 to 30 minutes, no speeches would be made, and an injunction would violate Collin's First Amendment right. Goldberger reminded the court that the only reason an injunction was brought in Brandenburg versus Ohio, a case involving a KKK leader, was because unlawful activity had been planned. Skokie wasn't even alleging unlawful activity, Goldberger said. But Judge Wazik wasn't having any of it. He denied the motion to dismiss, saying this.
I do not have to expound theories of Nazism. This court has the most unusual situation here. I have here a village with a great number of Jewish people. I have here before me a group of citizens of this country who endured, suffered, and God knows what happened to their respective families. I can take into judicial notice the Nuremberg trials and what a court of law found.
He further went on to grant the city of Skokie an injunction and prohibited the NSPA from
engaging in any of the following acts on May 1st, 1977, within the village of Skokie: marching, walking, or parading in the uniform of the National Socialist Party of America, marching, walking, or parading, or otherwise displaying the swastika on or off their person, distributing pamphlets or displaying any materials which incite to promote hatred against persons of Jewish faith or ancestry, or hatred against persons of any faith or ancestry, race, or religion.
Now, Collin, of course, quickly tried to outsmart the judge. He called up the local newspapers and said that he and the NSPA planned a demonstration for April 30th, the next day. The judge's order had said May 1st, but nothing about the Nazis gathering on a different day. People were pissed, scared. Holocaust survivors and other villagers gathered preemptively at the city hall, amassing a crowd of hundreds. They carried signs, except their signs had been nailed with loose, open nails on the back of the 2x4s, so they also potentially could have served as weapons. The sign said stuff like, no free speech for fascists, never again Dachau, never again Treblinka, names of concentration camps. The city called a meeting. Could they get the judge to edit the injunction? An emergency hearing was called, but Collin's ACLU lawyer was too busy to attend. Despite his absence, a Judge Sullivan altered the injunction so that date and time were irrelevant, and the Nazis, once again, had been defeated. Furthermore, the city of Skokie added 3 new statutes to their city ordinances on May 2nd, a day after the original Nazi march had been planned.
The statutes were drafted by Gilbert Gordon, Assistant Corporate Counsel of Skokie, and Schwartz's second in command. Ordinance 994, quote, an ordinance related to parades and public assemblies, was written as a traffic and safety law designed to protect Skokie's residents from, quote, disruption of essential services such as fire protection, program participation, and the orderly pursuit of their activities, and to safeguard their health, safety, and welfare. It regulated public assemblies that reasonably could be expected to involve over 50 people. Demonstrators now had to obtain a permit from the village at least 30 days in advance, posting public liability insurance of $300,000 and property damage insurance of $50,000. So we're no parades anymore, basically.
Yeah, no parades.
Because you guys couldn't behave. No parades.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to do any parades, actually, at all.
I mean, that does demonstrate, the severity of the reaction from the community.
Yeah.
Of, we can't be having this as a threat.
Now, because of this, the ACLU took a massive hit. People believed, even people who worked for the organization, believed that they should have left the Nazis unrepresented. However, Frank Collin had appeals to file, specifically with the Illinois Supreme Court, and it was his ACLU lawyer, David Goldberger, who was filing all of the paperwork. Senior members of the Illinois ACLU resigned in protest. Quote, the ACLU lost about 30,000 members, 15% of those who had belonged. The income that disappeared with them amounted to some $500,000 a year. While National Executive Director Aria Nair had warned in late 1974 that the organization was in financial trouble, he was unable to rectify the situation. As the Skokie cases worked their way through the courts and case expenses mounted, the National Board ordered the staff to cut $200,000 in expenditures and stop publication of the Civil Liberties Review. The Illinois ACLU estimated that it had lost 30% of its anticipated income for 1977, and it laid off 5 of its 13 employees. So Interesting.
I mean, it is interesting, but it's like you say that the Nazis like lost, but they must have drummed up a lot of publicity, and they're able to try and like play the victim was like, oh, our free speech rights have been trampled, and then at least in the short term here, because the ACLU defended them, they kneecapped this organization, which I have to imagine otherwise they don't like very much.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems like they got is like through this battle, through the process, they got a few wins on their side.
Yeah.
Well, and they got a big win, as you'll see, because in June of 1977, a 7th District Appeals Court justice gave a preliminary order on Frank Collin's appeal. And he said that because the insurance bond was so high, only private insurance companies would be able to offer that kind of coverage, effectively stifling the speech of lower income groups. And this is what skyrocketed the case to the United States Supreme Court. Was it unconstitutional to make it too expensive for Nazis or any group to demonstrate? The Supreme Court basically didn't pass judgment on that matter, but instead insisted that the Illinois Supreme Court needed to fast-track Collin's appeal if they planned to preemptively ban his speech. So the Illinois Supreme Court remanded the case back to the appellate courts, who ruled that the Nazis could march, they just couldn't wear swastikas. But later on in its full review of the case, the Illinois Supreme Court ruled that the swastika was in fact protected under the banner of free speech. The United States Supreme Court basically declined to do any further review. And here is a passage from the book about the Illinois Supreme Court decision. And it reads, "The Illinois Supreme Court handed down its decision in Skokie versus the NSPA on January 27, 1978, lifting what remained of the injunction prohibiting the party from demonstrating in Skokie. Once again, the opinion was per curiam, and it represented the views of 6 of the 7 judges who heard the case. The 7th, Justice William G. Clark, dissented without an opinion. The opinion for the court stated that decisions of the United States Supreme Court, and particularly its holding in Cohen versus California, left the Illinois court with no choice. Quote, in our opinion, they compel us to permit the demonstration as proposed, including display of the swastika, implicitly rejecting the appellate court's separation of symbolic speech from verbal speech. The court wrote that as, quote, it is entirely clear that the wearing of distinctive clothing can be symbolic expression of a thought or philosophy. The, quote, symbolic expression of thought falls within the free speech clause of the First Amendment. The village of Skokie makes one final appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, but they are denied. Even though, they eventually won, essentially, Frank Collin and his Nazis did not end up marching in Skokie, but instead later in downtown Chicago, where it was easier to obtain permits.
I see. It is just trolling. They were trolling, basically. The whole point of this is, how do you get a lot of attention through pissing people off? It's a good example of, the ideology of the Pepes, too, because, those people also believe in fascist ideology, but they do it specifically because they know they're going to get a rise from people.
Yeah, I guess a big difference here is some kind of faith in, the institute, that the institution would sort of, I can't imagine that Jake Lang is I'm going to reach out to the ACLU, I can't imagine that he's going to do that, because there's just no, I feel like people that pilled have zero trust in any kind of organized institution, that essentially the only thing that they trust is boots on ground, posts from the Trump, social media. I don't know.
Also, I feel like Collin was able to consider a long-term publicity strategy in the way that Jake Lang does not. I feel like he was a little bit more strategic in how he handled his things. So reaching out to the ACLU to demand that they defend his free speech and have a Jewish lawyer helm this. I mean, I have to confess, clever judo move by the Nazi.
Yeah.
But this is not something that I think Jake Lang is capable of.
No. I mean, Collin also didn't have the internet as an outlet. Who knows what he would have done if he could have been posting.
Yeah.
This seems like the obvious way of getting the most attention in his period, his historical context.
He's probably sitting on oxygen right now, just going, I wish I could have posted.
Born in the wrong generation guy. He's definitely a born in the wrong generation guy, either too early or too late. Because he's no, if I was a Zoomer now, can't imagine me doing.
Oh, I would have been, so effective. But he, Collin's life is sort of after this, things didn't go so well for him. There was tension in the NSPA between him and other top members because they found out that he was half Jewish. So they didn't like that. And also, former members found pictures in Frank Collin's desk showing that he was abusing young boys and doing it in NSPA headquarters and stuff.
I'm starting to think this guy is not a good dude.
They turned over the pictures to the police, and Collins was convicted in 1979 for child molestation. He was sentenced to 7 years, but served 3.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That tracks.
After his release from prison, Frank Collin resurfaced under the name Frank Joseph, recasting himself as a New Age writer and worshiping pagan. While incarcerated at Illinois' Pontiac Correctional Center, he had overlapped with prison guard Russell Burroughs, who later claimed to have discovered Burroughs Cave, a supposed cache of ancient artifacts and treasure in southern Illinois. Joseph became one of the site's most vocal supporters, publishing books and articles arguing it proved ancient Old World civilizations existed in North America. Beginning with his book, The Destruction of Atlantis, in 1987, he built a whole second career writing for Fate magazine and The Ancient American, a publication that made extremely problematic claims about America's indigenous people originating from other parts of the world. Basically saying that they were a mix of Norse mythology and stuff. Just, total nonsense. So he ended up kind of becoming an Atlantis guy.
Don't the Mormons believe something crazy about the native people of the American continent too?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we're actually a super American that has every piece of culture embedded in our whiteness. So the end of the story is he was a pedophile and he went to jail for it.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense to a certain extent that as the Republican Party gets more Nazi, they also get more pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel they're looking for people who are who really trying to transgress all boundaries, who just hate any limits on their behavior at all. And, there's a point where that stops being, sort of finger to the man sort of rebelliousness and starts being justifying child abuse.
Mm-hmm. Imagine a lot of that is the connection to is just sadism, just hurting people.
Yeah.
It's a tricky situation with freedom of speech. Because there are plenty of benefits to the American free speech system. One of which is that I actually left out, fun fact for Science in Transition, there's some stuff I left out about a certain doctor because I did not want to be sued. And so the Canadian system is a lot less protecting of free speech than the American one. You can see the benefits of that, but then we can also clearly see some of the downsides of the American system.
Right. This was a time when people heard about Nazis showing up and they went, what can be done legally? Because we got to protect these Nazis from these fists. If we show up, I see the swastika, I might become enraged. There were all these court proceedings, so many people in motion to try to figure out what's to be done about that. And the Overton window has just shifted so much that it's kind of just assumed that when you have these extreme right-wing sort of demonstrations that there will be out and proud, fascists there, dressing like them, sometimes coming armed,
especially after Charlottesville, that was really the moment, I think. I mean, I'm sure even 2010s, slightly before that, it's a bit more controversial Nazism than in this context. But that really did seem like the Band-Aid, especially the fallout.
Yeah.
It's nope, this is a growing, increasingly large problem. And cultural backlash isn't doing as much to stop it as it used to. When there was, with Collin, where it's literally just 10 fucking idiots who are threatening to march somewhere. Yeah. It's a lot more than that now.
Yeah. I wonder what Collins would have thought of American Reich, this clothing style brand. I wonder if he would have been a customer. But, I can only hope that our current Nazis will also be...
themselves.
Found to be pedophiles and arrested. I can only hope that they continue to... I don't know.
Basically. I think that's a good note.
Honestly. That's right, Nazis. Fuck you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the QAA podcast. You can go to patreon.com/QAA and subscribe for $5 a month to get a whole second premium episode for every main one. We've also got a website, QAApodcast.com. Liv, where can people find more of your work?
I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/LeVagar, as well as I have a newsletter, levagar.com.
Folks, go check it out. Listener, I'm going to take a break from doing some Nazi coverage for a while. I've done a couple now, and I'm going to get back on my bullshit. I'm going to do some fun stuff, hopefully.
Thank you for your service, Jake.
Yeah. But that's it. I can dip my toe in only for a little bit, and now I'm back out again. I will not be playing Hearts of Iron anymore, and I will be exclusively playing for the Soviets in Arma Reforger. And until next week, may the deep dish bless you and keep you.
We have auto-queued content based on your preferences.
Patriots, it's Mr. Scott, 1776. The past coming days I've been attacked. I've resigned from my position. Forbes has reported on it at Harmony Investment Group as the search fund manager. I've lost my home for my landlord. I've lost my attorney, Marcus Garski, from Garski and Hewitt, who has dropped me due to the political motivations. My bank accounts at Chase and JP Morgan Bank just were frozen. I'm here in my bunker here in Minnesota. Me and my team are gearing up. We've been doing some live studying. We've been doing some live drills. We will be boots on ground tomorrow. We will be holding a press conference with the infamous Zach X. Patriots, I know you guys are sick of being pushed around. You commie fucks. You guys keep saying you're gonna blow my hat off, you're gonna kill me. I'm gonna tell you one thing, and I want you guys to hear me clear. The more you kill men like me, just like you did Charlie Kirk, the more of us rise up. You guys are pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and there's gonna be problems. My generation is going boots on ground with air support from gentlemen like Nick Fuentes, people like Tucker Carlson. America is sick of being pushed around. The Americans are sick of looking weak, of feeling defenseless, and being attacked. I resigned from my position at Harmony Investment Group to fight you commie sons of bitches full time. And I will not surrender, and I will not back down. I pray the full armor of God on me every time I walk into this battlefield, and I pray you guys do too. There is no surrender. There's no backing down. We're going full steam ahead. I'll see you guys tomorrow at the Whipple Federal Building at noon with me and Zach Ix. God bless you guys. And the rest of the Crusaders. God bless you guys. Have a great day. Cheers.